Okay, hello everyone. Hi, Lynette.
Hey, Jeffrey.
Welcome. Oh,
Jeffrey.
or Jeffrey.
Or Jeffrey.
Yes, indeed. Professor Lynette, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Yeah, pretty good. We went out a bit earlier to the coffee shop, the Review in Fresno.
Oh my gosh. Cold brew milkshake.
Yeah, it was really good. Also, they hand make their cream cheese. Really delicious. We got a red pepper jalapeno today.
Yeah, it's my favorite coffee shop so far. We still have more to explore.
Yeah, there's another one in Tower District we should check out that I saw earlier, but maybe another day. I was doing some writing. You were working on
syllabi and planning. Oh my god.
Coming up fast. It'll be like a week.
Thursday.
3 days.
Yeah. Hello, students who are watching this.
Alrighty.
I'm on top of things.
From the future. How was everything else going though?
Good.
Standard?
Yeah, it's been a good Monday. Usually, so I decided that Sundays are probably my favorite days because it's like chill day, do whatever I need to do to get into the mindset of the week. And then Mondays are hit and miss for me of, is this gonna be a productive day? But today was productive, so I'm quite pleased.
You got up really early.
Yeah. That helps.
I got up pretty early. We had a sprinkler guy come, so.
Yeah.
All right, good. So, one's ready?
One's ready.
And we will turn, well, I'm not physically going to turn to it because I'm using my book as a mic stand to make it a little taller for me.
Page.
Yeah, turn to page 18, The Vanishing Glass. Today's lesson is called Uncaged Hope.
Ooh.
What is your initial thought? Should I read the synopsis first?
Yeah, read the synopsis.
Again, I wrote this, so critique away. The chapter starts nearly 10 years later from chapter 1's ending, and Harry Potter lives in a cupboard under the stairs with his Aunt Petunia, his Uncle Vernon, and his cousin Dudley. Dudley's parents are taking him and a friend Piers to the zoo for his birthday when Harry's sitter unexpectedly breaks her leg. Instead of leaving him alone to cause mischief, the Dursleys reluctantly take Harry with them to the zoo. Harry's unexpected day tasting treats and admiring animals becomes bizarre when he finds himself mid-conversation with a Boa Constrictor. Dudley's friend Piers overhears, and then Dudley insists on having a front row seat for this new performing snake. When the glass separating them from the snake mysteriously disappears. Suspicion falls to Harry after Piers claims he saw Harry talking to the snake, and Harry is banished back into the cupboard under the stairs.
First of all, Dudley is one of the most insufferable humans that I think I could ever imagine.
Yeah,
I know he's a child, but
he's pretty terrible.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Okay, so the episode title, so the way that the titling has been working is that you're setting the title, but based on I submit some contributions, some ideas of like what stood out to me, and then you kind of put that together with your own interpretation and come up with the title.
Yeah.
Sorry, what was it again?
Uncaged Hope.
Uncaged Hope.
You were thinking more along the lines of imagination, and I went with hope, but I love the uncaged. Yeah.
Well, I was trying to think of something with the zoo because I felt like that parallel between Harry and the Boa Constrictor, like that was made very visible of like Harry understands and also like, I don't know, this idea of feeling trapped. And there's a lot in this chapter about, it's basically about like, or I was reading it as taming something that's wild. Because that's what the Dursleys are all about. They're all about like their normal little life and nothing out of the ordinary, and everything that Harry does seems to trigger them and set them off.
For sure.
So, and I find it really, I like hope because, and I didn't think about it in this sense, but like, despite all of that, Harry still has this like imagination that he likes to play around with. And I mean, talking about his dreams and like regardless of like all of the abuse, I mean, not necessarily regardless, but it's interesting to think about that dynamic. He's like in a very abusive situation where the humans that are supposed to be caring for him are super suppressive, and they like try to, make him into something that's not interesting or that isn't like open. And that's kind of like the vibe that I was getting towards the end.
It reminds me, I kept thinking about why the caged bird sings. And especially actually with the snake. But Harry, of course, it's maybe even more obvious. But the snake, like the fact that he thanks Harry and says he's off to Brazil, like he's been imagining Brazil the whole time. Yeah,
because that was the thing, is that he was basically raised in the zoo. Like he had never been to Brazil. But knowing that there is a Brazil and something out there is like, okay, something that you can hope for or dream for or imagine.
Like within his caged environment, he could imagine the four walls and the three walls and the glass being gone, and instead the jungle going on forever. And it's very similar to Harry. I mean, Harry does imagine things. Like, he has no reason. The strangers, he talks about the strangers coming up to him on the street at the very, very end of the chapter. And he doesn't fully buy into it, but there is this inkling of like something special. Somebody's going to come and take him away. We have the benefit of hindsight here, or foresight into the book, that like somebody does show up and take him away. But at this point, he just has hope. He just has hope that something like that will happen. And then at the very end, this chapter alone, it feels like its own little story. It starts with him under the stairs in the cupboard. He gets to go out. He has this unexpected stuff happen to him. And then the worst thing happens to him, which is he does something unexpected, something weird, that Dursley's at some point, he talks about like, I have my quote actually that I loved. Don't ask questions. That was the first rule for a quiet life with the Dursleys. But then later in the chapter, they talk about, or Harry is thinking about how the worst thing that he can do is when something acts unexpectedly. They seem to think he might get dangerous ideas. I love that quote.
I wrote that as my favorite quote. Page 26.
I knew you were going to do that.
If there was one thing the Dursleys hated even more than his asking questions, it was his talking about anything, acting in a way it shouldn't. No matter if it was in a dream or even a cartoon, they seemed to think he might get dangerous ideas. And I bolded the word dangerous. This is my indoctrination of the episode. Don't be afraid of, dreaming things that are outside of the box. Don't be afraid.
Yeah.
I mean, I find it really fascinating because some of the questions that I was wondering, so like, okay, speaking of dreams, what's within the scope of Harry's imagination and where does it come from? So, I mean, not to go all weird here, but like, is it because he's in this very suppressive environment that like I would imagine that he's alone a lot, or at least like in his mind a lot, because I don't know, they don't want to talk to him. And I'm not trying to say that this sort of trauma or abuse or stuff like that is justifiable, because it's not. To say like, oh, this is why Harry has his like imagination. No, he's like literally trying to escape, and like the way he can escape is through what he can imagine and think about. Where that comes from, I don't exactly know. But I also find it it's kind of also, it feels like a balance to me. So like the Dursleys are all about like control, and like you want things to be within socially acceptable norming type things, and that gets boring. And so like a response would be, well, what if this instead? Because I don't know, but it's interesting that the Dursleys don't seem to have that desire. I mean, I know part of it is, and we got hints of it from the previous chapter of like, they have a secret, So like this is like what they've decided life should be like, is very controlled. And I love how Harry's talking about like his dream about motorcycles, and Vernon's like, motorcycles don't fly, and Harry's like, yeah, duh.
I know. Come on, guy. Does that really need to be said?
I mean, it makes me really sad for them, the Dursleys. Like, it's a very sad existence to be stressed out about something as silly as just imagining or dreaming or thinking of something that isn't real. I don't know.
I know. You have to think about now. I mean, even before Harry was really in their lives, he was already a source of stress. You see that from chapter 1. Now it seems like they basically live their life. I mean, not Dudley, I suppose, but the parents basically live their life under constant fear and paranoia.
Yeah, they're obsessed. Everything is an obsession. It's obsessed.
Harry makes the one-off comment, and he's ready to blow. Vernon's ready to blow. Like, it's bubbling there. They're boiling constantly. What a way to live, you know? I understand living with stress, but that's
well, yeah, everyone has their thing.
Yeah.
That's what makes it hard. Everyone has their thing, and like all of our things are not the same thing. And so that's where conflict arises.
Conflict.
But yeah, so like these repeated weird things keep happening. So again, like it's like a force. So like the more that they're trying to make Harry normal, the more that weird things seem to happen. So we have this boa constrictor, which I'm not sure if the suggestion is, Harry had something to do with it, just because of like how the scene laid out. But I'm not even sure if Harry thinks at this point that he did it.
I don't think so. I think he adds it to a longer list of weird
Strange
things, because he talks about like
jumping
and then winding up on the roof, and he's like,
yeah,
I must have caught a wind. That cracks me up so
casual.
Yeah, it must have just been a strong tailwind here and made me fly for a second. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know, Harry, but at the same time that he's like, he doesn't really think he's the cause or really like talk about himself as the cause. He also has no trouble believing that he's talking to the snake. Like it's seamless. The snake like raises its head, somehow like points its tail, shakes its head, and Harry's like, oh, we're talking.
Yeah.
Like the snake just answered my question. Now here's a follow-up question, right? So that is this kind of line that he lives on of like hope and then caged and then hope and then caged. Like he has the hope that he's talking to a snake for no reason.
Yeah.
The snake's just moving until the snake speaks to him. Or like he imagines that he's hearing the snake say like, thanks, amigo. And then he goes back and he's just kind of like, oh yeah, weird things happen. And I always hoped that somebody might come and take me away. But, you know, now I'm back in my cage and I'm just waiting for it to be night so that I can go eat something. Yeah. So it's this, yeah.
We also get a little bit of, so he doesn't have any memory of his parents. And so we can guess this because he was an infant. He was a year old when his parents were murdered. But there's like no photographs in the household. There's like nothing to go off of. And he has just spent the last 10 years with the most awful humans in the entire world. It's really fascinating because, and I think it's fitting, again, the word hope of like, this is your existence. This is all that you've ever known. Like whether or not, I mean, I don't think that Harry thinks that the Dursleys are normal. At least I would hope not. Because he goes to school, he has interactions with other humans.
At the end, he says he has no friends. It was super sad.
He's
like, he has
sad.
Nobody at school. And I'm like, not even any of the teachers.
Basically alone. And so, like, a snake talking to you, whatever. Like,
yeah. At some point in the chapter, I think they're in the car, and he's like, oh, nothing could go wrong. Like, it's a perfect day. Because of this confluence of stuff that he's getting out of the house and getting all these, like, treats. And then it kind of plays out that way. I love that. He, like, gets the lemon ice or whatever, and then he gets Dudley's leftover ice cream that he doesn't want or whatever because it was, I don't know, something was wrong with it. Dudley is a handful. Man,
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I can't.
Also, I think he counts to 37, but then has trouble adding 2 to 37. That was a weird moment for me. I was like, he counted to 37, he could add 2 to 37, but all right.
Well, yeah.
30, correct me, I don't know.
Oh, Dudley.
Yeah. And like, it seemed in chapter 1 like maybe Dudley was already being spoiled, but I think Harry's presence makes the Dursley parents even more like hyper focused on Dudley, because he to them is so normal. They want to make him super normal, so they like spoil him and give him all the things that like it's the white picket fence type thing, right? Mm-hmm. And they don't care that he like breaks things and all this. I don't know.
Yeah.
Funny.
Can we go back to the conversation from chapter 1? Okay. Dumbledore, is this really the right decision?
Yeah, that hindsight thing. I mean, I don't know.
I mean, yeah.
I don't know. You have to imagine that, I mean, eventually we know that maybe Mrs. Fig is involved in kind of keeping tabs on Harry to some extent for Dumbledore, but Dumbledore must have multiple avenues of information on Harry, right? Like,
but okay, so like, is Dumbledore just watching all the, I mean, I don't know. I'm just kind of like, this situation, this is like 10 years is too long of a time, regardless of like, is Harry Potter ready to deal with his fame? Question is like, for him to exist for 10 years in this
maybe Dumbledore's
situation?
Use of the Deluminator in chapter 1 lets him monitor Harry in some way.
Yeah, but what's your obligation to like come in and intervene?
I don't know. Would he? Right? It's a great question. Is there a circumstance?
Or anyone. I mean, I know that he's like, he kind of set this whole thing up and McGonagall knows about it. Mm-hmm. Hagrid knows about it because he dropped him off. Like,
Hagrid to me seems like the kind of person, as we get to know him, who would think often about Harry, but not necessarily interject himself into a situation. Mm-hmm. I think Dumbledore, it seems like there must be some circumstance. I mean, if we read between the lines, it's not a stretch to imagine Harry being physically abused as well. He's definitely emotionally and psychologically abused by these people. Like, it's a great question. I hadn't thought of that question until this conversation of sort of, was there a line in these 10 years that could be crossed where Dumbledore would show up and be like, okay, enough of this? You know?
Well, and I also wonder, because at this point, like, obviously Harry is nearing towards 11, so there seems to be at least a possible expiration date for this temporary situation.
10 years doesn't feel like a temporary
situation.
No,
it does not. 10 years, oh my God.
Yeah.
And especially because it's like, it's his entire childhood. Right. This is his entire childhood.
Right. And we know from the chapter that this wasn't the only time that something kind of wild happened with Harry. So this is a glimpse of maybe one of the most bizarre, with this talking to the snake and the glass fading, but this microcosm of one day is an insight into what his day-to-day life for 10 years has been as a child. Like, how he's not more psychologically damaged is fascinating.
Yeah.
Maybe we're going to chalk it up to the protection, but we'll see. You know?
Yeah. It's just very sad.
It's a very sad chapter. It's a very sad chapter, like, juxtaposed with, like, this goofiness, and it's a zoo, and it's fun, and it's, like, ice cream twice. You know?
Well, because I feel like part of the decision was kind of like, oh, he needs to be with family, as if that's some sort of obligatory thing. Like, regardless of whether it actually is good for him or not, like, in terms of safety. I mean, part of it is that they're muggles. So, like, he's living with muggles and not, like, in the wizarding world.
At some time we learn, this will be a line that we are always dealing with on the podcast, is, like, how much to really talk about the future stuff in the books and how much to anchor it. But sometime later, much later, we do learn that there's, like, an ulterior motive going on for, like, why Harry had to be, you know.
Yeah. I'm just thinking about, like, what are common narratives that are in our society.
Yeah, no, I know.
And so, like, family is a very, very complicated one. It's such a complicated discourse, and the ways that our society constructs what families look like, what the dynamics should be, and, like, basically the rights and responsibilities that, especially parent-child, or some sort of adult relative and child relationship.
Yeah. Yeah.
These humans ain't it.
No, I was just rewatching Lost, and one of the episodes, one of the scenes is Sawyer as a kid after his parents die, and he just like seems to go live with his aunt and uncle. Mm-hmm. Very similar thing.
Yeah.
And it is interesting how that seems to be the sort of normal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess sometimes it makes some sense because in Sawyer's case, he probably knew his aunt and uncle. He's like, I don't know, probably around 10 or 11 in the episode, but maybe a little younger.
Well, also
he knew them, but this is very different. Harry doesn't know his aunt and uncle. He's less than 1 when it happens.
Right, and it also seems like they were estranged. Like they didn't really talk, and so I think so when I think about like a historical context of like family, perhaps you lived near your family or you like worked together because you all lived in the same place or whatever, but that's just not the structure of modern families at all. Like, I mean, you have the people you live with, which may or may not be your, biological parents. And then depending on like how big your family is, you might not even live by your family. Like think about like how far away we are currently from both of our families, and how long we've lived apart from our families. And it's just, I don't know, it's just a different, I don't know, it makes me interested to see if or how that construction might ever change in our societal lens. I don't know.
Yeah. Like a family unit and what that looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, Dumbledore I can't imagine Dumbledore not keeping tabs on Harry, and he must feel guilty. He must feel bad about these circumstances.
Do something.
Especially with his knowledge of the fact that, like, even once Harry enters the wizarding world, it's not like his life is going to be easy.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to enter this world and it's going to be madness. Mm-hmm. It's going to be madness. 7 books worth.
Are you wise, Dumbledore? I don't know. I would love to like just be in his head.
I know. Anyway. Good?
Yes.
Okay. Well, until next time then. Wands ready.